Good morning and welcome to the Peorian. I'm your host, Paul Gordon. In today's world, it seems a college education is almost imperative if a child is going to make much headway in adult life. Oh, sure, there are still many jobs out there in which a high school diploma is enough, but there aren't many of those that are among the higher paying positions. Luckily, in this country, almost anybody can go to college. But are enough of our children adequately prepared for college once they complete high school? A few years ago, a group of business people and educators studied that situation in depth in Peoria School District 150, and they came to the conclusion that more was needed to make sure local students meet the basic requirements to succeed, particularly in math and science. They studied the charter school concept and where it worked, and then they formed the Peoria Charter School Initiative, which operates Quest Charter Academy. It began in 2010 for grades 5, 6, and 7. The following year, 8th grade was added, and now 9th grade has been added as Quest Charter Academy becomes Peoria's newest public high school. I will talk more about Quest Charter Academy with one of its founders and the president of its board of directors, Glen Barton, when we come back. Welcome back to the Peorian. With me today is Glen Barton, president of the board of directors of Peoria Charter School Initiative, which operates Quest Charter Academy. Glen, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Good. Most people still know you as the former chairman of Caterpillar Incorporated, where you implemented Six Sigma methodology and made it a way of life there. So you've long been concerned about excellence from the top down. Was that concern for excellence for you and for the Peoria Charter School Initiative the impetus for starting Quest Charter Academy?
No, not really. You know, I really think what drove me to become involved in that is the concern I had of our schools and our community spiraling down as a result of poor and poor education results. And I thought to myself, unless some way we can reverse this trend or stop this trend and then get into a recovery mode, our community is going to continue to deteriorate. Okay. And obviously, being retired, I had more time to devote to outside activities than I had previously, so that was my main motivation for getting into it.
What exactly did you see when you were studying what was going on with Peoria School District 150 that alarmed you?
Well, test scores primarily drive me to it, and then I saw a study that had been done by the Office of Job and Management, or whatever it's called, that had forecasted that the Central Illinois community was going to have a dramatic shortage of skilled workers by 2020. It's called Vision 2020, in fact, I think. And as I met with Ali at that point in time, Bashir Ali at that point in time, and Jack Gilligan was in that session, and a couple of others, we talked about what's the burning platform. What do we need to do in order to reverse the trends that are going on? And so they shared with me some of the school test results. And what I saw there was that basically our kids were doing fairly well through elementary school, but then they go into middle school. And so they are going into a bigger school further away from home, okay, with a lot of other kids they don't know, with a set of teachers that they are not familiar with. And as a result, our test scores from the 4th grade drop dramatically, like 50% by the time kids get to the 8th grade.
No kidding.
So then you pump these kids into high school, and even a newer set of friends and a newer set of circumstances surrounding them. And remember, these kids are going through adolescence as well. So they've got things going on in their bodies that they don't understand either. And as a result, we end up with a disaster in our high schools.
And we also end up then with kids who are not adequately prepared for college.
Precisely. And not adequately even prepared for skilled workers' jobs here in the community. You know, the skilled labor board, or the skilled trades board. We're very enthusiastic as we talked about changing the way kids were educated and finding a new approach, because they were not getting the incoming people into their organization that could measure things and could calculate numbers and could understand the things you have to understand in order to be able to be a skilled tradesperson.
Can you tell me what subjects that kids need to be most in tune with to be adequately prepared for college?
Well, it's those things, Paul, that you and I learned at home, and our parents helped us very much. And a lot of kids don't get it these days. Reading.
Okay.
Many kids don't even have books in their home.
Yeah.
And I'm involved with the Look, It's My Book program, a great program. Give away 15,000 books a year. And many of these kids are just thrilled because that's the first time they've ever had a book of their own. And then you think about what goes with that. Secondly, what do you teach your kids? How to count, and how to add, and how to subtract. And all of this generally happens in middle income and higher income families. But in low income families, this kind of personal attention doesn't occur because all too often the parents are not educated either. So what we do at Quest, for example, when we get these fifth graders, knowing full well that they've had a lack of training or lack of teaching in these early years of their life, is we double down. We have 2 45-minute periods a day on mathematics and 2 45-minute periods a day on reading and language arts.
That's good.
Yes, and we see dramatic results. You know, when we get a fifth grader and look at their test scores, and then at the end of the year what their test scores are, and particularly by the second year, we have made a dramatic improvement in kids' proficiency.
Was it the intent all along to open Quest Charter Academy for anybody?
It is all, if you have a charter school, it has to be open to all residents in the community, in the district. And as a result of that, we knew full well that if we had more applications and we had rooms or spaces, that we would have to go by a lottery system. But the lottery also assures us that we've got demographics that are similar to what are in the district. For example, 70% of our kids this year are African American, 9% are mixed race, 7% are Hispanic, 2% are Asian. So we've got a real mixture of students, much like the district.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Quest Charter Academy operates and how it is affiliated with District 150. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Peorian. My guest today is Glen Barton, one of the founders of Quest Charter Academy and president of its board. Glen, what makes Quest Charter Academy different from the schools in District 150?
Well, I think a couple of things really make it different. We really provide personal attention to our kids. And, you know, we have longer days. Kids know when they come in that they've committed themselves to a longer school day than what they would have at the district. And as a result of that, we can double down on programs, as I mentioned previously. They see from day one that you know, we're trying to build a culture within the school. We start with an opening assembly in the morning. Then they go into 30-minute sessions with their counselor, and these are groups of 15 students as opposed to a typical class of 25. And so they talk about things that they need to be working on and things that really will help them move forward in life and move on to a goal that we keep trying to implant in their mind, that they're college bound, that our goal objective is to make them college ready when they graduate from Quest. So I think that, coupled with the personal attention they do get in the classroom and hopefully the enhancements we've brought to the classrooms, like smart boards and computers, and each of these students get 45 minutes a day in a computer class, learning to do programming, to access things on the internet, and so we're making them all very computer literate as well. So we test kids 3 times a year through the Northwest Education Association assessment organization. And we know where the kids start. We know how much they should be able to grow in the course of the year. We track that mid-year, and we track that again at the end of the year.
Okay.
So we've got 3 assessments, the information that we get back within a week's time, as opposed to the ISAT, which is a yes or no test. You're either right or you're wrong, and we don't get that back until 2 or 3 months after the tests are taken in the late year.
How is Quest funded?
Quest is funded in part by a split of the GS&A that comes from the state and general, or the federal government. We get 85% of what is calculated to be the normal tuition rate for District 150. And so we have that as a major source of our funding. And then we do grant work, and also, obviously, we have an active, ongoing campaign to raise funds for the school.
Is Quest part of District 150 in any way?
We are considered a District 150 school. We were authorized by the district. We are considered to be a public school, and we are considered to be, secondly, an alternative, a choice school for District 150.
Okay, then why does Quest have an independent board of directors?
Because, again, the charter school law calls for a charter school to be organized and operated by a 501(c) foundation and have its independent board of directors.
Who appoints the board?
We select our board members.
Okay. District 150 school board is elected by the citizens of the district. Your board is chosen by your board.
Yes.
Which is better?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm the right one to comment on that. I like the idea that we can draw on the people that we really need to help guide us through these activities without the need for them to stand for election, and many of which would not be prepared to do that. You know, I give my full credit to District 150 board members. They really do earn their money, so to speak, by being on that board. They devote tremendous numbers of hours to it.
Yes. You now have two schools, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Columbia, former Columbia and former Laux.
Yes.
You've expanded now to 9th grade.
Yes, we have.
And that's at Laux, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And eventually, Laux, or what we call the Quest High School, will become our high school.
Okay.
And so each year we'll add another grade at Laux, or at our high school, until we're 9 through 12, and then all the other kids will be over at the middle school at the former Columbia facility.
Okay. We're going to break now for some messages, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the future of Quest Charter Academy. But first, here is our own Kevin Kaiser to tell us what's happening in the literary world.
Thanks, Paul and G. Bart. This week I'm taking a look at 3 new books about classic rock giants, and the classic rockers in question are John Lennon, Pete Townshend, and Neil Young. The first book is the John Lennon Letters, which is a collection of John's notes to friends, journalists, and even a few groupies. This is an incredible book and shows Lennon to be a lifelong letter writer. The correspondences oftentimes are handwritten and include a little doodle or sketch, and can be a bit cranky, especially if you wrote John in order to express your displeasure with his life partner Yoko. Just ask Paul McCartney or a disapproving groupie who received the response, "Yoko's been an artist before you were ever a groupie." He starts a letter to the McCartneys with, "I was reading your letter and wondering what middle-aged cranky Beatle fan wrote it. What the hell, it's Linda." Of course, many of the letters were written in 1971, just after the Beatles' breakup, so you can understand why the man who implored us to give peace a chance wasn't in such a peaceful state of mind himself. The next classic rocker in print is Pete Townshend with his memoir, Who I Am. This is a long-awaited book because Townshend, much like the aforementioned Lennon, wrote some of the greatest songs in music. Pinball Wizard, My Generation, Cats in the Cradle, Walk This Way, Rapper's Delight, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Oops, I Did It Again. The list goes on and on. In Who I Am, Townshend writes about auditioning for Roger Daltrey while sitting on a bed that hit a fugitive, smashing his first guitar on stage by accident, inventing the Marshall stack, hearing the voice of God while on a vibrating bed when the Who came through good old Peoria, following Keith Moon off a hotel balcony into a pool and nearly dying, doing too much cocaine and nearly dying, drinking too much and nearly dying, basically doing a whole lot of things too much and nearly dying. But the man who declared that he hoped to cease to be before he became aged is still around, and Who I Am is an incredible read. Finally on our list of classic rock authors is Neil Young with the book Waging Heavy Peace. This is another eagerly awaited memoir from a man who has been inducted now twice into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Young writes about his time in bands like Buffalo Springfield, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Crazy Horse, which takes him from the snows of Ontario through the LSD-steeped landscape of California to the warm beaches of Hawaii, where he calls home today. So there you go, the John Lennon Letters, Who I Am by Pete Townshend, and Waging Heavy Peace by Neil Young. And they are available now at Good, Bad, and in different bookstores everywhere. Why listen to music when you can read about it? See you next week.
Welcome back to the Peorian and my guest, Glen Barton, president of the Peoria Charter School Initiative. Glen, has it always been the plan that Quest would eventually become a high school?
Yes, our initial application said that we wanted to develop a 5 through 12 middle school and high school program.
Why did you take it one step at a time like you've done?
Well, we really started because we wanted to phase this thing in. You know, ideally, if we could have started and had time to do so, we would have started with a 5th grade and then added a 6th grade and then a 7th grade until we got to 12. So we took a chance, a risk, by starting with 3 grades. And I think our risk was less than what we had anticipated, because when I look at our 8th graders, who we just promoted to the 9th grade last spring, 91% of those kids were reading proficiently and 92% were proficient in math. So we'd been able, with them only being there for 2 years, to catch them back up and make all except a very small number of them proficient. So the risk was not as great as we thought. But on the other hand, I've also learned that the expectations that our kids were doing okay coming out of the 4th grade, it was a little bit overstated. Our kids are not doing as well as I was led to believe. So we've got 55 to 60% of our kids coming in as 5th graders that are meeting requirements, whereas we'd anticipated that would be 75 to 80%.
Wow. So they've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yes, they do have.
What about extracurricular activities at Quest? What's offered now, and what about the future?
Well, we have a number of after-school programs, 40 different clubs, for example, I think last year, ranging from carpentry to cooking and you know, cheerleading is in that, and another number of other things. But we also have in those 2 hours after school each day, we have teachers that come in and tutor for at least a couple of hours for students that need help a couple of times each week. We started with girls basketball, boys basketball. We had a track team. We also had a soccer team that played not in any league this past year, but are playing this year, will play this coming spring. Our intent in high school is to eventually have athletic teams that will compete in at least basketball and soccer, baseball perhaps.
On the varsity level?
At the varsity level. But we will not, because the size of our high school will only be a max of 300 students. We don't anticipate that we'll have a football team nor any sport that would require a lot of capital investment. Basketball, volleyball, that sort of thing, probably.
Okay.
Soccer.
What do they do now? They have, if they want to play those sports.
Well, they're playing today in the school, and as we go into, we will be actually a member of ISHA, I think, starting next year when we have teams that can compete within IHSA.
That soon? Well, that's wonderful.
Again, limited number of sports.
Okay, but what about facilities?
Well, we have 2 nice gyms, very nice gyms, both at our high school and our middle school. They were built in the early 90s, so they're maybe a little cramped for basketball. We keep trying to figure out how we can expand one of the courts about 5 inches or 8 inches, I think is the magic number that we need to do. We have at the high school, we have about 5.5 acres of playgrounds, outside playgrounds that we can use. We will also obviously have to use public facilities or other district facilities for sports.
You haven't talked to District 150 about that yet, though, probably.
Well, we haven't, no, but I don't think it will be any big surprise to them.
Okay. How ultimately will you, on the board, and the public be able to measure the success of Quest Charter Academy?
I think the way that I will see as a proof that we achieved what we set out to do is when we graduate our first class and 90% plus of those kids are eligible and get scholarships to go on to 4-year universities. That is the goal we've got. And we know that Concept School, which is our charter manager, run 27 other schools in the country at this time. The one in Chicago has demographics somewhat similar to ours in terms of low-income students. And they've been able to do with their first 2 graduating classes exactly what we anticipate doing. And that is 100% of their kids getting 4-year scholarships.
We've not been able to touch on nearly enough in this quick show. For more information, people can go to your website.
Yes.
To get more information about Quest. What is the website?
Website is quest.com.
Quest.com, that's
it. Oh, quest.org. I'm sorry. No, I don't know. I don't go there because I go to Quest every day.
Okay.
But that's the other way you can learn. Just come to Quest. I'll take you on a tour.
Okay. That sounds good. I hope you've enjoyed today's program and that you've learned much about Quest Charter Academy and you support its efforts. Remember, you can see this and earlier episodes of The Peorian on our website, thepeorian.com. And tune in next week when my guest will be Brad McMillan of the Institute for Principled Leadership and Public Service. And we're going to talk about the upcoming election. That will be at 8 a.m. next Sunday on WHOI TV and on our website, thepeorian.com.
Yeah.